Well, according to this system, the free market economy of Benin has grown consecutively for 4 years. Their economy is primarily based with cotton production. Also, Benin has a youthful age structure. Almost 65% of the population is under the age of 25, which is bolstered by high fertility and population growth rates. The high fertility index demonstrates the large population that can be economically active if necessary institutions are available and that works effectively for education of citizens. Also, cotton key is an export commodity, with export earnings significantly impacted by the price of cotton in the broader market. The industry is not prepared to receive a big amount of cotton and on other primary productions because there is a deficiency with the government's assistance. The fashion industry is part of the cause of the current condition, considering that they violate human rights by creating practices of human slavery in order to complete the corporate supply chain. They employ kids and people for more than 20 hours per day. That's a thing that we need to tackle. We find out that there are lots of strengths and weaknesses of the country. So we get to analyze the regional system of Kalale in a deeper way, like the origin of seasonalities and droughts.
Our guide vision, Star Vision, it will seek to reach 40% of the total cotton production from develop the industry on all the communities that surround it. This will have a positive effect on income for use in public services such as infrastructure that is completely necessary for the supply in this village. We think that if the infrastructure changed in terms of health, the population would benefit, just as it would be a long-term innovation investment for access to education at shorter distances.
The near start 5 to 10 years. In this period of time, the industry will work cooperatively to make a regional competitive advantage in such a way that the utility will be beneficial for the three countries, taking characteristics such as the exit to the sea and terrestrial connections for transport. It is important to mention that not only will be cheap, it only will be cheap labor, since it will be invested in learning the industry in a deeper way, in avoiding bad pay and making a quality product. That's why the free trade agreement between the three countries and the know-how and good practices of Burkina Faso's cotton production will help in our industry.
The following system was built for Kalale Benin. All the elements are related to causes and effects inside the region. This is how the guaranteed factors make virtuous or vicious loops. We will begin by explaining how the deepest factor is composed. The deepest factor is the main factor that must be reviewed within the vicious circle in which Kalali has been involved, being this the cause of the problem of the fast fashion industry. These structures emerge from the older relationships found in the loops based on reality and not the desire of the state, capturing the complexity of the system.
Also, the low capacity of the government is directly related to the corruption that exists within the region, generating inefficiency in the policies that can be considered like positive effects. One example is the financial policies, because this gives priority to foreign investors and traders rather than to small businesses. So this perpetuates transnational monopolies and leaves local producers with no opportunity for growth. Followed by this is the weak rule of law, lack of authority, leadership, and other factors like laws which stop the effectiveness of the political system. Society has a great influence that the rule of law is respected so much, so the problem is that they do not know how it works and their participation is limited. Also, public services are deficient and the population reduces their quality of life in such a way that citizen participation becomes scarce and almost without access to education, making this vicious circle not strong enough to demand a change.
The explanation of our system shows us that all factors are interconnected, starting with corruption that causes a lack of order in the decisions taken by the government to inefficiency policies and the creation of a weak rule of law. This connection is directly linked with the negotiation capacity, the lack of infrastructure, and the problems of roads that isolate society due to lack of transport. This is very important to guarantee access to services and jobs in rural or marginalized areas, such as this village, are excluded from innovations that can save the population from poverty. In addition, it is possible to link education to the negotiation capacity that, as I mentioned, dismisses citizen participation and generates a low potential that increases the cost of living, which is why people from Kalale prefer to live abroad. Migration is a complex subject that relates to many aspects. The migration is caused by the system of unfair trade and causes bad living conditions. Clothing is sold at exponentially expensive prices compared to hourly wages in the field and in the textile factories. The workforce of the system has a right failure, low income, and lack of economic opportunities. And in the absence of development, there is the impossibility of access to and misuse of technologies. Nowadays, it's essential to have the technology to connect with the world and seek to improve conditions based on clear strategies such as the system map.
We found out that migration is also part of a tension between religious and ethnic groups that arise problems of violence and lack of security that should be provided by existing institutions. Also, these institutions cause corruption and the lack of quality public services such as health and education services. And this is how everything is interconnected and returns to the same point. Finally, the environment is an issue related to the textile industry given to Kalali, the seasonality to export, for example, like cotton. And however, during the Harmattan season, it is impossible to manage resources and there is precarious, precariousness. And the great barrier to the front of the lack of technology, with which new sustainability techniques could be generated and the system interconnects in this way, leaving the deep structure as the elements to build a solution.
For the leverage analysis, we're going to ask the following questions one by one. As it says, where is the system frozen? We believe that this region has a particular problem related to the various security gaps that have a negative impact on society and the way it develops and relates to other communities as well as other states. At the institutional level, it is possible to identify how the population has lost confidence in the institutions, triggering a problem in the application of the rule of law that severely limits foreign investment in the productive sector of this region. As this region is immersed in the national political system of Benin, it is directly affected by corruption and mismanagement of the political organism, remaining stuck in inefficiency and mediocrity.
The next question is, where, where is there pent-up energy for challenge? Mainly in governability and the rule of law. The rule of law is a very important element that will help to recover the trust of the citizens within the government, considering that it covers many areas. When talking about the rule of law, the elements that are taken into account in this case are corruption, insecurity, and instability, which are equivalent to elements that can be corrected in order to improve the idea that citizens have of the government. On the other hand, by improving the institutions in the public and private sector, people will have evidence of the legitimacy that can be a positive impact on the state-society relationship. Therefore, governance is also a factor to be considered, and it is very important because in the government relationship with citizens, we have to be very careful. A certain balance must be established in the exercise of political power. This will be achieved by establishing solid solutions to the social and political demands of the population. If the capacity of governments to meet the demands of the population is positive, this will reflect their efficiency, stability, and legitimacy vis-a-vis to the population and the state.
The next question is, where are the places that seem like a mixed bag? And we found out that they are at the coastal region by considering the geopolitical benefit because of the existence of the sea. But also at the same time, they have like regional problems because of the seasonalities that affect the cotton production. And also they do not have enough infrastructure to increase their cotton production and exports. But they do have like the possibilities to learn or how to adopt the know-how from Burkina Faso is like an example, and considering the shared border.
And where are there places that seem like bright spots? Well, there are in commercial, agriculture, education, life quality, and improved salaries and labor conditions.
And the last question of this slide is, where are you seeing ripple effects? And in first place, in investment, which leads to reduction of child labor, improve the quality of life of the citizens, and it will also allow better salaries. Another example of ripple effects can be with permanent programs to support the innovation in their agriculture sector, that it will have an impact on the seasonalities problems, droughts, resource management, and types of planting. And then it will have more ripple effects on the exponential growth to exports, security in planting processes, and agriculture diversification. Finally, if we build infrastructure, an education system, and training programs for teachers, we will achieve higher educational attainment, and this will have an impact on the development of human capital, considering that education is fundamental for the society. In the end, the, all these examples will affect all the institutions and will create a competitive economy so that the country could be more prepared to join the global economy.
In this slide, we are going to talk about the strategy. So we are going to answer the following question just as we do like in the last slide. The first question is, where do you want to engage the system? Well, Benin is in an African country that has been involved in several economic, religious, and social issues that have considerably limited the growth potential of this country, mostly in more than one area. In terms of social issues, we can identify a cultural shock or contrast that, besides being a constant obstacle for development, it also causes conflicts at an economic level in some regions. An example for this situation is Kalale town. This is a region located in the Bourgu department in the east of Benin, which is characterized by the proliferation of cotton fields, textile factories, and the production of peanut oil. All combined provide a considerable income to the country. Also, this region has a particular problem related to the various security gaps that have a negative impact on society and the way it develops and relates to other communities as well as other states. At the institutional level, it is possible to identify how the population has lost confidence in the institutions, triggering a problem in application of the rule of law that severely limits foreign investment in the productive sector of this region. As this region is immersed in the national political system of Benin, it is directly affected by corruption and mismanagement of the political organ, remaining stuck in inefficiency and mediocrity. One way to address this problem is by providing a comprehensive solution is the application of the Sustainable Social Livelihood Study.
The next question is, what impact are you seeking to make on the above dynamic? The Sustainable Social Livelihood Study that we proposed will be beneficial in having a better understanding on both social and economic aspects of the town. which would then allow us to implement more specific and effective strategies in order to increase investment for the productive sector. The reason why capital is not invested in the region is because of the lack of trust on political institutions, as we have mentioned this before. This translates into higher risk levels that are usually unbearable to most investors. So it is unlikely that banks and investment firms want to put their money where governments cannot assure economic stability. The main areas in which we are seeking to create a real impact in the region with the strategy and the project in general are in attracting foreign investment, build infrastructure, create an effective education system, and to improve the agricultural sector. So then there will be automatic impacts on other areas like reduction of child labor, that this will lead to the trust of foreign companies in order to invest in the region. And this will also lead to better salaries and the improvement of the quality of life. Also, with a better educational system, the region could create a more competitive economy that would help them to integrate in an easier way to the global economy. Another question of this slide is, why might engaging this dynamic leads to broader change in the system? Well, as a team, we thought that this is because basically Kalale is a failed state. So with only one effective change made, then there would be like a huge impact on different areas of the society and the government. So this means that there are many ripple effects, and therefore there would be improvements in all the processes and structures. So as I mentioned, our research was based on different livelihood assets, for example, human capital, financial capital, and social capital are like the most important for Kalale and the most affected nowadays. So these are the assets that will have more changes and more impacts in the society. Engaging in this dynamic might lead to different livelihood outcomes that we also mentioned before, like increased salaries, better educational programs, international trust for investment in the region, reduced child labor, to have again rule of law, then recover citizens' trust in the government, among some or others.
Well, finally, how can you achieve this impact? Well, in order to achieve the impacts that we mentioned before, we will focus on some of the objectives based that belong to the 2030 agenda that will help us with the help of the UNDP, that is the United Nations Development Program. But why the UNDP? This is because it will be a fundamental support for us to achieve these impacts because of their strategic plan to 2018-2021, that this was designed as a response to the diversity of the countries that work with this organism. This diversity is completely focused on the structural transformations, on building resilience, and the most important, eradicating poverty. Nowadays, the world is facing a very diverse, complex challenges. So we consider that the support of the UNDP will be very strategical, considering that it is imperative to create a safer political environment with less corruption and more transparent processes to increase investments confidence.
Well, as my classmate mentioned before, with this help, economic growth is the most powerful instrument for reducing poverty and improving the quality of life in developing countries. Also, the institutional context is an important factor in determining whether a given policy that will be appropriate or not. Also, incentives for investment are the very important key conditions for growth depend on the institution setting. For example, we have the Sustainable Development Goals, that is number 5. It is about the gender equality. This SDG is very important and necessary for peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. And we would need help from United Nations Children's Fund, that is UNICEF, WHO, World Health Organization, United Nations Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights, and also UNESCO. We consider that citizens have a low governmental participation related to their lack of trust in the government institutions, and with that, they are not participating. So power is concentrated within a small group of people, and the current situation limits a large segment of the population of the political growth and participation in civil activities. Due to the lack of infrastructure opportunities in education, and it will make well-prepared citizens with the knowledge to participate actively in the political sphere and demand their rights of living. And this is because sometimes citizens are not even aware of them. Another example is the SDG number 16, that is about peace, justice, and strong institutions. And we think that this SDG helps the communities and people to use their rights to elect their leaders in local communities. And also, we suggest to access justice for all in order to be effective and accountable institution at all levels. And finally, the tackle of these challenges and build a more peaceful, inclusive societies in this region. And their needs they need to be more efficient and transparent regulation to put them in the right place, to be realistic, and then they have to have like a better government. And using this structure, we can get the help from Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UN Department of Political Affairs, and the UNDP.
Finally, we will find the Sustainable Development Goal, number 4, relating to improve quality education and involve people's lives in sustainable development. We will use help from UNESCO, UN Children's Fund, UNDP, Global Education First Initiative, and finally, UN Office of the Secretary General's Boy and Youth.
So if we have these dynamic impacts and ripple effects, then we expect to see child labor reduced, which is one of the most concerning problems around the area and also around the world. Children need to prepare themselves for the future, leaving the world labor at some young age with the help of the government institutions to provide them with the necessary educational security so they can prepare and thus to achieve better future as people and as professionals.
Well, with the implementation of the study and the right strategy, we can have a much more transparent and solid political body that becomes like attractive to international investors. As consequence of international investors, the productive sector will benefit and reactivate the economy in general, providing the adequate infrastructure for citizens to have growth in the academic sphere, but especially in the political sphere. So citizens can leave behind all of those security gaps in order to have a better quality of life and better future. Another important organization that is working in this um, country is called SOS Children's Villages. They have a partnership to have some objectives in specific topics, and this organization supports the families so they can stay together and provide homes to children who have lost parental care. And also, this organization runs medical centers, kindergartens, and schools in the country. It is important to consider the existence of this organization in Benin because this organization gives us the advantage to be able to ask for their help and be able to take their ideas to the community of Kalale because this help is not already in the region of Kalale, it's just in Benin. So we consider that we can use this help to take it to that community.
Well,
Well,
finally, on the on the systems practice moving forward, what systems in your life or work do you know think that about differently? In the work systems, our mentality changed completely, totally completely, because we had to put together all the different working methods or ideologies that we had through a new structure of an organization, following the same guideline and taking our project to a leadership practice. On the other hand, in the life system, our perspective of work was based in order to help us to grow and develop through a balance in order to adapt to the environment work that surrounded us. The experience of working as a team allowed us to implement our ideas, to organize ourselves, and be able to participate and learn through commitment.
Also, in this bullet, there is another question. It's has your new perspectives changed the way you interact with those systems in your life or work? We believe that yes, because we created a better self-confidence as leaders and focus on the specific needs of the community in order to grow our ideas to help and improve the infrastructure for better results. We developed a competitive agility in order to collaborate with each other on a teamwork.
Has it changed how you view poverty and inequality? Yes, absolutely. It also exists the idea inside of our team that we can eradicate poverty by sending humanitarian aid. But we do not realize the damage that we do to those countries with the excess of it. Developed countries that send international aid use this as an advantage to promote their foreign policy. The truth is that abusing the send of help to the less developed countries instead of helping them will end up affecting them because they will not work on reactivating their local economies. We did learn to see poverty in another perspective because poverty is rarely seen as a problem created by the same system. The education system has taught us to talk about meritocracy, although the reality is that fiscal policies, no governmental organization, and also tax evasion generate the presence of poverty. It is certainly a trap and an industry in which many of us participate by pointing out differences between people and between different lifestyles.
And the last question is, what is the biggest practical thing you will do differently as a result of this exercise? We conclude that we will try to find a job where there are actions that can really have an impact or can create some changes. If it's not possible in our first job to create a global impact, then at least we will try to do it inside our community or country. For us, it is important to start considering their social problems, the poverty issues that take place inside our country, in order to start thinking in solutions and possible actions that we can do in order to change these situations. Here we are going to show you some pictures of our work, where we do all the upstream causes, the downstream effects, the analysis of the leverages, and developing the hypothesis. So we were the team of Kalale, and that is all. Thank you.